And we're live. Welcome back or welcome to the Truth Comes to Light podcast, where everything done in the dark is going to come to light. Every single detail in this world that is done in the dark is going to come to light. I'm your host, Jay Coven, and welcome to the show. For those of y'all that are new on the Truth Comes to Light podcast, talk about news from all over the world, the music industry, and more. Please be sure to check out my previous podcast episodes on the channel. And also, please be sure to tune in to Real Spill Wednesdays. On Real Spill Wednesdays, we talk about life topics and motivational quotes. Please, if you are interested, please be sure to tune into Real Spill Wednesdays. Also, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you get the latest updates on when I post a full podcast episode or a full Real Spill Wednesday. We done just made it over 100 subscribers. We're at 105 subscribers as I'm recording this video. So I really thank each and every one of y'all that have liked, comments, shared, supported the channel in every possible way that y'all could. Like, this means the world to me. I will be having a 100 subscriber special coming for y'all real soon. Real Spill Wednesdays coming real soon. And I really just want to thank each and every one of y'all, because without y'all, I wouldn't even be here. So keep on supporting. I'm going to keep on staying consistent. Y'all keep on showing support, and I'm going to keep on coming back with the content every single chance that I get, because I love y'all. I cannot wait for that 100 video special. Y'all follow me on IG, TikTok, and X at the Truth Comes to Light podcast, because who knows, on any one of those social media platforms, it's like a foreshadow on what the next podcast episode is going to be. I'm going to start asking for podcast topic suggestions and also Real Spill Wednesday topic suggestions. So I want y'all to feel as though y'all can engage with me. So give me your ideas on what I should talk about, and if I can get to it, I will be talking about it on my next podcast episode or my next Real Spill Wednesday. So with that in mind, let's get straight into this podcast episode. For this podcast episode, I did the March Madness prediction. The official bracket has officially came out for March Madness, both men's and women's. So for this podcast episode, I brought my dad, and I also brought Wild Wayne Cartwright from the Hill podcast and Wild Wayne Cartwright. I will be putting both of those channels down in the description below. Please be sure to check out his podcast and his personal channel. So with that in mind, I want y'all to sit back and relax and listen to the March Madness playoff predictions, both men's and women's. And also give me a comment on who y'all believe is going to make the Final Four and who is going to win it all. So with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the full podcast.
What's up, everybody? This your boy Wild Wayne Cartwright with my boys, my boy OJ and Mr. Jalen, or should we say Jay Coven.
Hey, Kobe, y'all. What's good, y'all?
Man, hey, we getting ready to talk about this NCAA tournament, y'all. So, I know everybody out there, you trying to gamble, you just trying to be a sports fan. Maybe you got a favorite team, maybe your team made it, maybe they didn't make it, but it's the most exciting time of the year, otherwise known as March Madness, y'all.
Facts. Sit back, just relax, look at all the games, and all of the games are going to be entertaining. I mean, if your team is there or if they're not, all games are going to be entertaining. Watch out for the Cinderella teams. Watch out for all the blue bloods that could potentially make it to the Final Four and win the championship.
Yeah, and man, with these Cinderellas, now I'm gonna just say this. Everybody out there, every year, you go looking for a Cinderella. If you're looking to find a Cinderella, you're not gonna find the Cinderella. The Cinderella gets through, and sneaks up on folks. Last year, Florida Atlantic, they took advantage of an early upset by Purdue when Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. They rode that little wave to get into the Final Four. You know what I'm saying? Last year we had Florida Atlantic, San Diego State went to the finals as a 5 seed, and you also had Miami. So you had teams that no one ever saw coming. But you also have years where the higher seeds also make it. So, man, Jay Coven, man, and OJ, we gonna do this thing. But let's roll into the East bracket first, okay? Now, as you can see, the number one overall, the UConn Huskies, going for that back-to-back. All right, OJ, Talk to me about the East bracket, man. What you think?
First things first, I think this is a loaded bracket. I think that UConn, for a team that won the national championship last year, didn't get any of the breaks that you would see from a defending champion as far as the teams that are in their region right now. I like UConn eventually to come out, to be honest with you. I like Auburn's chances to get there as well. I like Illinois, and I like Iowa State. There you go.
Piggybacking off what he said, yes, UConn is in a loaded bracket with the Big Ten champ, the SEC champ, all of these teams that could potentially make it out. But one thing that I will say about UConn is probably the most complete team in the whole tournament, and this is what you need in order to make it far in the tournament. If you don't have a complete team, and if you're not consistent throughout the whole season and throughout each and every game, you can get down. No matter if it's the first round or if it's the second round, you just never know. So with UConn being a complete team through and through, I feel as though they have a good chance no matter who's in their bracket to make it out.
Yeah, and for me, I look at sometimes you look at that 8-9 matchup that's in a region. And
Right.
sometimes that 8-9, you might have a team that they struggled all year. In this bracket, I don't see the 8-9 being something of significance. Now, UConn is the favorite in this region. And one thing that I do look at, though, when you mentioned you got the SEC champ in Auburn, they went hard for 3 days. Illinois, Big Ten champ, went hard for 3 days. Yeah. Iowa State went hard for 3 days. A lot of times teams, they come into the tournament having to, expend a lot of extra energy. Sometimes they don't have that edge as necessary. So ultimately, I do believe UConn's going to come out of this bracket. I think the one team that may scare them if they have a chance to meet would possibly be Iowa State, because TJ Otzelberger, he's got a deep bench and he's always got skill transfers. So, yeah.
What I like, one team that you didn't say that I personally like if they meet is Auburn. I like Auburn's team with Broome and Aiden Holloway and all the guys that they have. They can play defense at a very high level, and that can cause some problems for UConn late in the game. So if they do meet up in the Sweet 16, Auburn could be a team that could get hot. They can shoot the three-point ball at a good percentage. They can cause problems for UConn, and they can knock them out potentially in the Sweet 16.
My sleeper in here, and it's crazy as it to say it being a sleeper because they made it to the Final Four last year, is San Diego State. Mm-hmm. If San Diego State gets hot, and let's say I think they're going to beat UAB. But if they can play defense the way that they played defense last year in the tournament and beat Auburn, then watch out. Because I really feel like the only hiccup to Auburn is if a team plays just as physical as they play. And to me, I think Auburn has a chance again to get to the Sweet 16. I also think that Illinois has a chance of getting to the Sweet 16, but, and that's a big but, they have to get by Morehead State first. Mm-hmm. And if you get that one game win first, and let's say if they try to get it, if they get it at a double-digit win, then it's easier for you to play that second game. And then after that, then go forward to the 16.
Now, for me, the team that I think could surprise and make a run here in this region, Drake Bulldogs.
Yes.
Coach Darian DeVries with his son Tucker, the Missouri Valley Player of the Year, Darnell Brody, big man down in the paint. They're highly skilled, and they've been in the tournament now 2 years in a row. So Drake, Usually, a double-digit seed tends to make the Sweet 16 every year. Drake could be one of those double-digit seeds that could get to a Sweet 16. But ultimately, for your boy, I think UConn is going to win this region, and I think that they're going to beat Illinois in the Elite Eight to get to the Final Four. You guys feel UConn as well?
Yes. I have Drake actually winning the first game.
Okay.
That's hard because if Auburn plays good, they can beat UConn. That's really who I'm considering having in the Final Four if they do get high.
Yeah, I mean, for me, UConn, they've been on a mission all year. They've only lost 3 games, and they've been so consistent and so complete. I mean, Donovan Clingan, such a beast inside. Stephon Castle, the freshman of the year in the Big East. The transfer, Cam, or as like Gus Johnson likes to call him, Killer Cam Spencer. Shooting from deep. They're just such a complete team. And I think the experience of last year doing what they did, I think is what's building that momentum for them. I mean, usually a defending champ sometimes doesn't come back as hungry. These boys look hungrier than they were last year. So we'll see, y'all. That's the East region. All right. So now let's change some gears now, and let's go and look at the next bracket, which is the South. Now, you boys down there in Houston, you know about this. You guys know about Houston very well. You've seen them all year. They spent a lot of time at number 1, and they're coming in after getting taken to the woodshed by Iowa State in that Big 12 championship game. But, they're the number 1 seed in this bracket. So, Jay Coven, what you think about this South bracket?
I personally feel as though Houston, with them losing by over 20 points to Iowa State, is going to come with their chip on their shoulder. Kelvin Samuel is going to get them right for the tournament, and I feel as though they're going to carry that loss, even though this was their first year in the Big Ten, and they lost by 20. I feel as though them losing by 20, that's going to be a lesson for them, and that's going to push them in the tournament.
Okay. OJ, what do you got, man?
I actually have Kentucky making a run along with Marquette. I see both of those teams getting further than Houston, and mainly because of the injury factor and because Houston is not deep. They run 8 deep, basically. And the Juwan Roberts injury is a difference maker. It really is a difference maker. Let's see how his shin is. If his shin is fine, I think they have a chance. But right now, Texas A&M can upset them, even though they lost to them earlier in the season. Nebraska can upset them in the second round of the tournament. I think Wisconsin can upset them, or even Duke can actually upset them. So it'll be a challenge for Houston once they get past their first round game, because I think they're going to win the first round game. Yeah,
as far as Houston goes, they've had some pretty deep runs here over the last few tournaments. Some Sweet 16s, a couple of Elite Eights, and even a Final Four appearance. I look at the potential of playing Nebraska. Kosei Tominaga shoots the ball from anywhere. Rink Mast is a very skilled big man, a stretch 4. Fred Hoiberg was definitely he was on the hot seat entering the year. In fact, Nebraska was picked 12th in the Big Ten. They ended up finishing 3rd. So, in Texas A&M, they went on a nice run there, got hot in the SEC tournament to get off the bubble to get safely in. So that should be an interesting second round game. The team I got my eye on, though, that's a scary team, is the James Madison Dukes. Now, you remember that the first game of the season, they went to East Lansing and beat Michigan State.
Yeah.
And I think Wisconsin, they got hot, and then they lost 8 of 11 to finish the season. And then they found themselves when they got in the Big Ten tournament. That was a very impressive win that they had over Purdue. But I think James Madison is going to pick them off. And then you look at a hungry Duke team. Duke very much underwhelmed when they got in the ACC tournament. Went out early to shout out to NC State in this bracket. 5 wins in 5 days to make it. I think Duke has a lot to prove. This is a bracket that has a lot to prove. Kentucky has a lot to prove.
Yes.
You know, I look at Marquette, Tyler Kolek. He had an oblique injury. He didn't play at all down the stretch. Didn't play the Big East tournament, but they got to the final. You know, so we're going to see what we got in this bracket. To me, the team that I have coming out of this, I like Houston to get to the Elite Eight, but the team that I actually have coming out of this bracket is Kentucky. And the reason why I think Kentucky's going to come out of this bracket is they used to do it with defense. Now they do it with high-octane offense. And I think the high-octane offense that they have, and those young guys who don't know any better, I think it's going to carry Kentucky to win this South bracket. What you guys got?
I actually think that Kentucky is going to get to the Final Four as well if Houston loses early. If not, I got Houston. But here's the thing with Kentucky. It's basically on how things are going to be officiated throughout the whole tournament. And if I feel like they're going to win the first game. Whoever wins in that tough game between Texas Tech and NC State, it's going to be a physical game between Kentucky and NC State. And right now, when I look at this particular region, Calipari is the most experienced guy since he's the only one in this region that has won a title. So I think coaching actually matters. So I think that Kentucky has a shot to me and the talent to get to the Final Four.
If we're talking about just strictly talent and strictly offensive skill, I feel as though Kentucky can make a run. But if we're going to take it all complete together with defense, Kentucky can lose as early as the second round to Texas Tech and NC State. They can both out-physical the guards and the big men. So it's going to be hard. If Kentucky comes to play and they can defend really well, they have a good chance of making it far. But all the losses that Kentucky has had, they've been out-physical. So yeah. I personally feel as though Kentucky, with their offense, they have the potential to make it far. I have Houston and Kentucky in the Elite Eight, but I also have Houston making it.
Cal, and one more point, Wayne. Cal has to press the right buttons as far as who his lineup is going to be in certain situations. He has so much talent on the bench and on the court, basically. When does he take out DJ Wagner? When does he put in Dylan Hale? When does he put this particular big man in? Or when does he not put this particular big man in? So all of these factors he has to get intact in order to get to where they need to get to.
Yeah, I like this. I like this bracket. This bracket, I think, is got a lot of firepower. I've got a Sweet 16 of Houston, Duke, Kentucky, and Marquette. And I think Marquette and Kentucky could be one of the biggest or one of the best games of the tournament.
It's always is. I mean,
I think it's going to be if they get there, I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, people forget about Kentucky and Marquette being in the tournament and the matchups that they've had over the years. They've had some all-time classics from the Dwayne Wade triple-double.
Yep. So that's the South, man. We kind of mixed on the South, all right?
Yep.
So now we go ahead on and we take it on to the next bracket, which is the Midwest, where Purdue is the top seed in this bracket. They kind of come in a little bit limping. Zach Edey was a little bit banged up. Braden Smith had a little bit of a knee issue in that Big Ten tournament. And, you know, they had it. They had it right there against Wisconsin. They let it get away. Now, they do have the luxury of playing 2 games in their backyard there in Indianapolis. So I think that gives them a good safe passage to get on ahead and get to Detroit in the Sweet 16. You've got some enigmas in this bracket. Yes. Gonzaga. Who is Gonzaga? Kansas. Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. They both were injured. Didn't play in the Big 12 tournament. Hunter Dickinson separated his shoulder in the season finale against Houston. What's he got? Then you got the upstarts. South Carolina. Phenomenal season under Lamont Paris. You know, they ended up making a pretty good run there in the SEC. Then you've got Tennessee, who's been great all year. Dalton Connect. To me, he's the player of the year in America. You know, they got Adu. They've got a deep team. Zakai Ziegler, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Stacked teams. Don't forget about the Creighton Blue Jays. Greg McDermott had this team in the Elite Eight last year. You know, so you've got some teams here that got a lot to prove, but you also got some sneaky squads. Look at that McNeese team, Will Wade. That team only lost 3 games all year. Yeah, it was the Southland, but it's Will Wade, which makes you have to wonder. So, Jay Coven, where you at on the Midwest, my brother?
It's a lot of good teams in this bracket. One team that does stand out to me is the Creighton Blue Jays with Trey Alexander and Shireman. I feel as though, yes, they made an Elite 8 run last year. I feel as though where they got placed in this bracket, they can make another run. Another team that I personally like that no one is really talking about, I like Gonzaga. Even though they didn't win, they lost the same years. I feel as though the experience of Mark Few with Nembhard and those boys on those teams, I feel as though they can make a run. You can never count out Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, with me, I do agree with you on those 2 teams. Creighton. I have Creighton in the Elite 8. I just seen them all year long, and I think they've played top 10 basketball pretty much for the whole year. Even though sometimes they've been out of the top 10, but consistently, I think they've played top 10 basketball throughout the whole year. The sneaky one is that Gonzaga McNeese game, because the winner out of that game, and I'm going to throw this out there, the winner out of that game is going to the Sweet 16. I'm just going to throw that out there because I think if Kansas, similar to Houston, if they're not 100% healthy, they could get bounced. And they could get bounced in the round of 32. They might get bounced depending on how healthy they are in the first round. So that's why I see. I also see Purdue and I also see Tennessee getting there, but the 2 teams to watch out for, to me, in my opinion, are Creighton and either the winner out of the Gonzaga McNeese game. And I think it's going to be Gonzaga.
Out of all the number 1 seeds, I'm concerned for Purdue that next game when they play TCU and Utah State. Both those teams are fast-paced teams, so if they can outrun Purdue and make it a possession for possession, more possessions, TCU, especially who I have beating Utah State, I personally feel as though if they can make more possessions happen, TCU could potentially beat Purdue in that second-round matchup.
If Purdue doesn't win in Indianapolis, I don't know when they're going to win. So they have to win those 2 games. It's pretty much set up. It's set up for them to get to the Sweet 16, especially when the first game is either Montana State or Grambling. So they can see how tough that Utah State and TCU game is, because that 8-9 matchup is going to be tough. And then just sit there and we're playing at home. We're going to have pretty much the home crowd cheering on for us in Indianapolis. So they should be able to get by and to get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
My problem with Purdue is after they get to the Sweet 16, how they're going to play.
Yeah, for me, my concerns for Purdue, and one thing that they need to do, they need to learn from last year. Last year, they were too Zach Edey reliant, and Fairleigh Dickinson beat them with speed.
Yeah.
They were undersized, but they beat them with speed. They drove to the basket. They just ran them up and down. They could not guard in the pick and roll. They had a lot of problems. So Purdue, how much did you learn from last year? Because honestly, for Matt Painter, this is his 19th season, and he's yet to bring them to the Final Four. They've been to the Elite Eight. They were close. Remember that when Virginia won in 19? Yep. You know, Diakite hit that shot at the end of regulation to send it overtime. Yep. That was the closest that they had been under Matt Painter. Well, my concern is this is pretty much it for him with Purdue. This is probably his best shot to get there. Same thing can be said for Rick Barnes with Tennessee.
That's what I was going to say.
This is your best shot. This is the team for you to try to get there. And also Mark Few. You getting a little bit long in the tooth too. You've been to two national championship games. And time is just dwindling on you guys. So I call this bracket the sense of urgency bracket. And to me,
one more thing. You said that last year that Purdue was too much dependent on Zach Edey. I feel the same way this year for not only Purdue, but for Tennessee as well. I feel like at times Tennessee can be too Dalton Connect dependent in times in which they force feeding them the ball, and then the four guys that's out there playing with them are like, okay, what do we do? No, I think they need to basically spread it around with Tennessee in order to get to where they need to get to.
All right, so fellas, my question to you now that we got so many question marks about this region, who's coming out of it?
I will personally say Creighton. Is going to make it out. I like the path that they have, even though Purdue is set up for them. Kansas not being 100%. This isn't Gonzaga's really best year. TCU or Utah State, they have the talent to beat them, but if they get ran up and down the court, like you said, if they did last year against Fairleigh Dickinson, they can easily lose that game, and I feel as though TCU can do that. Creighton, with the team that they have, how hot they've been, how consistent they've been, especially throughout the tournament, I feel as though Creighton will make it out.
I agree with what Jay Coven is saying. I think Creighton is the team that's going to get out of the Midwest.
Wow. Okay.
I do.
Well, the team
because of the experience that they had last year.
Okay.
They were in the Elite Eight last year, and they had pretty much everybody coming back. And they're not going to be scared of any team that's in this particular region. Not at all. So,
well, I will tell you that I've got Tennessee coming out of this bracket. And reason why I'm taking Tennessee is that sometimes you just need to have that one guy that's a hot hand and have a nice supporting cast. And I think when Dalton Connect is playing at his level with those shooters and the big men that they have, I think they have all the parts to get out of this bracket. I see them actually getting there, and I think the team that they're going to beat to get to the Final Four is Gonzaga.
I agree.
I think Gonzaga's going to pick off Purdue when they get to Detroit.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be Gonzaga against Tennessee, and I got Tennessee coming out of this bracket. Lord Jesus, I got two SEC teams. I got two SEC teams.
I had Creighton and Gonzaga.
I actually had Creighton and Gonzaga as well.
Okay.
I personally don't trust Rick Barnes and Matt Painter when it comes to adjusting to how the games are being played. So,
yeah, man. Well, this was a tough bracket. So now we're going to transition our way on over to the last bracket, which is the West. And in the West, we talk about some more question marks. You got a lot more in this bracket. All right, North Carolina, they come in as the number 1 seed. And it was funny. I watched them against NC State, and I said, there's no way they should have lost that game to NC State. The way they played, it was just, it makes you shake your head. Also, Arizona getting picked off in the semifinals of the Pac-12 against Oregon. You know, it's just question marks. Also, you've got teams that underwhelmed. Michigan State, preseason number 4, barely even making it through the tournament. Then you've got teams that had to earn their way to get there. New Mexico had to win all the games in the Mountain West to get there. Mississippi State needed a clutch run to get there. But then you got Nate Oates with Alabama. They've made a couple deep runs. And then you got Dayton. Dayton has been pretty good. But down the stretch, they've kind of slumped. And then lastly, I'll highlight, you got old Scott Drew with those Baylor Bears. He's won a national championship before. You know, so this bracket, it's got a lot of weird things going on. Before I turn it over to you guys, the team that I look at, that's a double-digit seed that could cause some havoc in this bracket. I'm looking at Grand Canyon Antelopes, man. We talking about some Drews, Bryce Drew. You know, they're 29-4. 29-4, even though they played in the WAC. That's no slouch. If I'm St. Mary's, I ought to be on my P's and Q's. And St. Mary's, if they can get past that game, they have the potential. So, Jay Coven, OJ, talk to me about the West. Jay Coven, go first.
Grand Canyon and St. Mary's are two totally different types of play styles. St. Mary's like to limit the possessions, like to play slow. Grand Canyon likes to play faster. So Grand Canyon can beat St. Mary's, and they play Alabama, which are two fast-paced teams, wanting to shoot the 3 ball, wanting to get more possessions. That'll be a fair matchup for Grand Canyon. But what I will say is this: if St. Mary's has to play Alabama, who they're fast-paced, and St. Mary's loads the possessions, St. Mary's, they can beat Alabama. Both of those teams have potential to beat Alabama, and that's what I love about that 5-12 matchup game. I feel as though whoever makes it out of that could make it to the Sweet 16. I do like North Carolina with Cormac Ryan, Armando Bay, Kyle Cadeau. I feel as though they're a good team as well. And Arizona, I feel as though even though they lost, I feel as though they can still make a run based on the teams that they do have to play.
I personally think that this is the region that you're going to see the most upsets. I actually think that you're going to see a team like Charleston maybe beat Alabama, or New Mexico beat a Clemson, or like you said, a Grand Canyon beat a St. Mary's. I wouldn't be surprised. I do see when all the dust is settled, North Carolina making a run, especially we talked about last region with Purdue playing in Indianapolis. North Carolina plays in Charlotte these first 2 games, and it's going to be basically
they ain't losing in Charlotte, brother.
They're not losing in Charlotte.
They ain't losing in Charlotte.
Exactly. So the one stickler to what I just said may be a St. Mary's, because St. Mary's does have experience on playing in Spokane. If they can win their first game against Grand Canyon, I feel like they can get into the Sweet 16, because I think the winner out of Alabama or Charleston, they can beat. So all in all, I do think Carolina is going to get out of this region, but you're going to see a lot of upsets within this region in order as the games go along. I'm sorry.
So for me, I look at Arizona. You know, I look at Caleb Love, who was the Pac-12 Player of the Year. I know that he's looking up there at his former team. And also, I look at the depth that they have. Tommy Lloyd has done so well with that team ever since he took over. I look at Umar Ballo down low, Azulis Tabelis as a senior. They got some guys. Pella Larson. They got some guys, man. They got some guys that have been around the way a little bit. So, Arizona's my team here. I actually think that I agree, OJ. I think there's going to be some upsets, but I think this is going to be a 1-2 regional final there in Los Angeles. I think it's going to be a lot of chaos in the middle, but on the top and the bottom, I like Arizona and North Carolina getting to that Elite Eight. And I think it'll be a very thrilling Elite Eight game. But my edge here, I'm going with Arizona. I know Arizona has had some struggles, but when Arizona is playing at maximum efficiency, that team is athletic, they're physical, they rebound, they get after it. And I think if it's between them and North Carolina, I think the physicality that they have, with that ability to have some guys that can shoot the ball, I think that Arizona's my pick out the West.
And I have Arizona. Exactly what you said. I feel as though it's going to be chaos, but overall, I feel as though this is going to be the region where you see the 1-2 for the Elite Eight, and whoever wins it is going to go to the Final Four. Unlike any other bracket, I personally have Arizona beating North Carolina, and I feel as though they're going to be that team out the West that makes it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go back.
Yeah, I disagree with you guys, but I think it's going to be North Carolina beating Arizona.
North Carolina beating Arizona.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back. All right. So let's do Jay Coven's picks. All right. East region, you got UConn, correct?
I have UConn.
Okay, let's go to this one here. Okay, so you got UConn up top in the East. Out West, you have Arizona.
Well, hold on. I take that back. Hold on. East, I have Auburn. West, I have Arizona.
Okay.
South, I have Houston. And Midwest, I have Creighton.
Okay, so you got Auburn, Arizona. Who you got? Well, you got Arizona playing in Phoenix now. If they get to Phoenix. All right. So between Arizona and Auburn, who you have in that semifinal?
I have Arizona.
All right. And then between Houston and Creighton.
Ooh, that's hard. Do I want to say Creighton or do I want to say... That's hard because if Houston doesn't have no offense that game, Creighton can easily beat this team. That is hard. I think I'm going to go with Creighton.
Okay. And then you have Arizona against Creighton in the finals.
And I have Arizona winning it all.
All right.
In Phoenix.
In Phoenix. I have Arizona winning it all.
All right. Go ahead, OJ. East, who you got?
I have UConn in the East. I have Carolina in the West. I have Kentucky in the Midwest. I'm sorry, in the South. And I have Creighton in the Midwest.
All right.
I have UConn winning against North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have Kentucky beating Creighton in the other semifinal. And then I have UConn versus Kentucky. I'm going to go with UConn because of the experience from last year.
Okay.
Even though Cal has won a title as well, I think that it's going to be UConn because of the talent that they have that came back, the championship talent that they have coming back. So.
All right. So for your boy, I have UConn out the East. I have Arizona in the West. I have Kentucky out of the South, and I have Tennessee out of the Midwest. I've got Tennessee. Just playing. I got Kentucky beating Tennessee.
What?
I'm just playing. I got Kentucky beating Tennessee, and I have UConn over Arizona. I've got UConn beating Kentucky to go back to back.
Yeah.
I just think UConn is. I just got UConn. I think UConn is just too good, man. Too skilled, too deep. And I think that they will have their share of adversity along the way. Of course, no one ever wins a championship without any challenge or without any struggle. Yeah. I think that UConn's potential struggle could be in that Sweet 16. I don't care if it's San Diego State or if it's Auburn. That's going to be a challenge for them. You know, it's a who's who for who can face them in the East Regional Final, because Iowa State's there. Drake's there. Let's not forget about Washington State. They had an upstart year. Illinois is there. Let's not even forget about BYU, man. Mark Pope, man. Good job in the first year in the Big 12. You know, and then also you go into that West. We talked about it. Gonna be some chaos up the middle. So if you picking this thing and you want to look for some upsets, definitely look in that West bracket. You got some challenge. You got some chances to pick some upsets. And then also in that South bracket, wide open, crazy wide open. And then also Midwest. Midwest is the enigma bracket. What is Purdue? What is Gonzaga? What is Kansas? What's Tennessee? You know, so this is going to be great, man. So that's how we go here in the West and also through the Midwest, the East, and the South on the men's bracket. Destination Phoenix. All right. So that's the bracket so far, man, for the men. And we're going to get into the women here in a second.
I feel confident. I feel confident in all of my picks. I feel as though, like I said, you have to have a balance of offense and defense. And I feel as though all of the teams, really except for Houston on the offensive side, they can play both offense and defense, especially Auburn.
Okay.
As well, so.
All right. Well, let's look on over here to the ladies. All right. Now, I hope everybody brought their eyeglasses. All right. All right. We'll try it. We'll try it like this. All right. So first off, South Carolina undefeated. Come on into this thing again as the number 1 overall seed. They're used to this thing. Okay. You've got the Caitlin Clark effect coming out of Albany Region 2 as the number 1 seed. You also have USC with Juju Watkins, the freshman of the year in the Pac-12, and probably going to be the freshman of the year in America. Shout out to Hannah Hidalgo, though, of Notre Dame. She's another powerful freshman.
Yes.
And then you got Texas. Coach Vic Schaefer, man. 3rd season. Big 12 champions in their last year in the league. Kind of crazy to say that the last year of Texas being in the Big 12. All right. Then you got some others out there, the 2 seeds. I mentioned Notre Dame, Hannah Hidalgo with Niele Ivey. Up there with South Carolina's bracket. You've also got 2 seed Stanford, Cameron Brink with Tara Vanderveer, who's now the all-time wins leader in men or women's basketball. Ohio State here in my backyard. You know, they were regular season Big Ten champions. You know, a veteran team that went to the Elite Eight last year. UCLA. This is the best team that they've had in many years, you know, and then you got some other teams up here like Indiana, deep run last year. You know, you got some other squads that got some individual players that can cause some terror. You got UConn sitting there as a sleeper, as a 3 seed in Regional 3 at Portland. You know, so no one's talking about UConn. UConn has made almost every single Sweet 16 you can think of. You know, so now just so everybody knows the way this format works, if you're a higher seed, if you're seeded 1, 2, 3, or 4 in a region, you get to play at home for 2 games. And then they have 2 regional locations played on consecutive days. So Albany and Portland. And the destination is my hometown, baby. Cleveland, Ohio, for the Final Four. Now, everybody knows South Carolina was one of the teams last year that everybody thought it was a mere formality that they were going to win. And then along comes a team called Iowa, picked them off in the semifinals. And then the LSU with Coach Kim Mulkey went and cut those nets down. All right, so let's blow this back up here. All right, let's talk about regional number 2 with Iowa. Jay Coven, OJ, tell me about Iowa.
What I will say about Iowa and the Caitlin Clark effect. First off, these women's games that I've been seeing lately have been very entertaining. This tournament is going to be very entertaining. All of these women have heart and they want to play for all of these games. It just means everything to them, especially the championship. What I will say about Iowa, though, it's kind of the same with Purdue. You're relying on Caitlin Clark a little bit too much. All of the girls, they can't really create their own shot. Caitlin Clark creates their shots for them. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I feel as though Iowa, if their supporting cast cannot create their own shot, Iowa can easily lose in the Sweet 16. They can lose to Colorado. They can lose to LSU. They can lose to UCLA. They can lose to these teams based on the fact that they rely on Caitlin Clark a little bit too much. You saw it in the championship game. They were down by double figures. Nebraska controlled that whole entire game all the way until the end of it. They were down by 8 with 2 minutes to go. If it wasn't for Caitlin Clark, they would have lost that game. So with that in mind, I feel as though I'm a little bit concerned with Iowa in regards to making it out Albany too.
Well, just to piggyback to what Jay Coven was saying about these games, I'm just going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that these will be the most watched women's tournament basketball games that we've seen ever so far in history, because there's so much intrigue into these particular games, especially if Iowa and LSU gets to the Elite Eight. Because I feel like if Iowa and LSU gets to the Elite Eight, the amount of people that are going to watch that particular game is going to be astounding for an Elite Eight game. We're not talking about games that's in the Final Four. We're just talking about one Elite Eight game. And again, I agree with what Jay Coven is saying regarding Iowa being too dependent on Caitlin Clark. But guess what? They were too dependent on Caitlin Clark last year, and they got to the championship game. So true. I think that they have the ability to get to the Elite Eight. And I think that LSU, being that they won last year and being the fact that they want to get back to playing South Carolina, they're on a mission. They're on a mission to beat whoever that's in front of them. So I do think that both Iowa and LSU will get to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I think that Regional 2 in Albany, I think it's the greatest. It's setting itself up to be the greatest story of the tournament.
Men or women.
Yeah, men or women. Yeah. I do think that Iowa and LSU, I think that they're on a collision course there. I think that America wants to see it again. I think the networks want to see it again. The NCAA wants to see it again. I think it would be a ratings blockbuster if they get together in the Elite Eight. But let's just kind of put that on pause for a second. We'll talk about that one last. Okay. Now let's go on and shimmy on down to where you see USC is the number 1 seed in that Portland, Regional 3. Okay. Now you look in their bracket. They've got Ohio State, who I talked about. They got UConn, who's been way under the radar. And they've got a lot of injuries. All right. And then you got Virginia Tech. Remember, Virginia Tech went to the Final Four last year, led by Georgia Amore. And we'll see about Elizabeth Kitley. She didn't play in the ACC tournament because she had a knee injury. So we'll see about her availability. And then you've also got teams like Baylor, Nikki Collin with a nice little veteran group. So you've got a good mix of teams there. You know, now I'll say this with USC. Lindsey Gottlieb, shout out to her. She was in the NBA for a little bit. She was on John Beilein's staff when he coached the Cavs for a hot second. She did a phenomenal job with this young team. Juju Watkins, if you ain't seen her play, you're missing out. I mean, this girl handles, take you to the hole, pull up with a step back on you. She's got a full arsenal of offense. And they won the Pac-12. So over Stanford, which was no slouch. Or Ohio State sitting there. Ohio State played USC the very first game of the season out in Vegas. And USC beat them. And that kind of was the arrival of Juju Watkins. And she's been rolling all year. So, guys, in that Regional 3 of Portland, all right, who do you guys see coming out of that region?
I like USC. The thing with USC that is different with Iowa, USC has a supporting cast. When you look at the game against Stanford, Juju Watkins didn't beat Stanford. It was Mackenzie Forbes with 26 points. She was the MVP of the Pac-12 tournament. She was the one that was playing good. And no one really talks about her. It isn't just Juju Watkins. Yes, Juju Watkins is a star freshman. But she has girls on her team that can score the rock. And that's what I like about USC. And I feel as though USC, with that and their whole team being a collective group, I feel as though they can make it far. And I feel as though they are going to make it, as a matter of fact.
I can't count out UConn. I as much as I want to count UConn out year after year after year after year. And injuries, they got injuries. Don't get me wrong. They got injuries. But this UConn team is flying under the radar in this bracket. They are. I mean, I could see them getting to the Elite Eight. And if they get to the Elite Eight, again, potential matchup between USC and UConn will be a great game. It really would be.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think Paige Beckers is gonna play down to anyone. I think that this is going to be the tournament to which you're going to see Paige Beckers play probably her best basketball since coming back from her injuries.
And that's
there's a lot of storylines here in this bracket because UConn last year, they were knocked out of the Sweet 16 by Ohio State. Ohio State has a very veteran team with J.C. Sheldon as their leader. You know, they got Cody McMahon as a sophomore down low. Kevin McGuff has done a real good job with that group. I mean, you know, they went through the entire Big Ten at 18-2, which is pretty strong. So you got a lot of firepower. I think I see USC getting to the Elite Eight. I think they're going to tangle with Virginia Tech in the Sweet 16. I do see UConn and Ohio State both getting there to Sweet 16. I think the game between Ohio State and UConn is going to be a dog fight.
Right.
It's going to be a full-out dog fight. Aaliyah Edwards, she's another X factor for UConn. You know, she's a 4-year starter and she averages 17 and 9. So she's pretty tough, and she didn't play down the stretch of the Big East tournament because she has a broken nose, but she is going to play. My concern for UConn, though, is they only have 8 scholarship players. That's all they got. Because remember, AZ Fudd went out for the year. Caroline Ducharme went out for the year. They had a lot of people, a lot of injuries, so they got to get some people to step up. And they're going to play a lot of small lineups. Aaliyah Edwards is 6'3". Usually she's about the biggest that they play in the main rotation. So we'll see. Ultimately, I think it's going to be USC against Ohio State here. I think USC is going to get to the Final Four. I'm with Jay Coven. I think USC, I think they're deep. I think they got enough to get there. Okay. Now let's shimmy back on over to the other Portland. All right. You got Texas, number 1 seed, deep team. Vic Schaefer has been really, really, really good. And then, you looking at Stanford there. If I switch here, you're looking at Stanford. Okay. You got Stanford who, they got Cameron Brink, Hannah Jump, really, really, really veteran teams. These two, they were on that team that won the national title 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. 3 years ago. 3 years ago. That beat Arizona in the finals.
Right.
So they were there. Also, 3 seed NC State. They were hot to begin the year. And they kind of hit the skids and cooled off a little bit. A couple teams you got to be careful about. Gonzaga, playing at home, 30-3. Very good team. Utah Utes got a big girl down low by the name of Peely. Mm-hmm. She will back you down and bruise you up. They got a real good team. This bracket is no joke. No joke. No joke. Talk to me, OJ, Jay Coven.
Yes, this bracket is no joke. The Pac-12 is loaded all throughout every single one of the regions. I personally felt as though with Cameron Brink, and even though they lost to USC, I thought that they were going to get the 1 seed, but they ended up giving it to Texas because they did win their respective title. I personally like Stanford. I feel as though even though Texas, they have the talent, always have the talent. I just feel as though when it comes down to playing an experienced Stanford team, I feel as though they will lose. I personally like Gonzaga too. That's one of the teams that I do like, even though they lost to Portland. Even though they lost, I personally feel as though they will come back and they would rally and they'll play some good girls basketball and make it far. But personally, I like Stanford.
Yeah. Now, what about Tennessee? How do you feel about Tennessee there?
Well, with Tennessee, I liked how they played against South Carolina using ball screen action. And with Tennessee, I feel as though since they played South Carolina really well, they can play against any team. And I feel as though they can cause teams problems. And that's what I love about Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, just to go back to the Tennessee point, I think that loss right there gave them confidence that they can beat anybody in this particular region. Mm-hmm. You lose the way that they lost to South Carolina. Yeah, they were down for just 1 second, but now, I mean, you're in this tournament right now, and I think that, hey, they played the best team that they feel that they've played, and they played them well.
They held on the whole entire game.
Exactly. So,
yep.
My question to you is, and to Jay Coven, Vic Schaefer, coach of Texas, if not this year, when? Because this is the best. Even though she lost Rory Harmon, it was a double-digit score. Right.
Still, you have the talent. You pushed your team, and you propelled them all the way to the title. Even with her being out for the year in December, you still made it that far, and you get the number 1 seed. The number 1 seed, you should be able to make it far.
Yeah, Vic Schaefer. Remember, he took Mississippi State to the championship game twice.
Yeah.
Lost
is
to
the
South
best
Carolina and lost a heartbreaker. Remember Enrique Agumbawale with Notre Dame here in Columbus.
Yes. Now this is the best. This is the best team that he's had at Texas since he was at Mississippi State. I feel like this is the best team. Right. So that's why I said, if not this year, when?
Yeah, so I have Texas getting to the Elite Eight.
I do too. Yeah.
I actually have Tennessee against Stanford. I think Tennessee's gonna get to the Sweet 16. I like Tennessee. They showed a lot of fight. They should have actually beat LSU. Also. So I think it's going to be Stanford, though. I think Stanford is going to be the team that's going to get out of this region. Texas, I think, is when it comes down to it, I just got to go with Tar Vanderveer's group. To take that region. So I've got a second Pac-12 team getting to the Final Four. Okay, now let's shimmy on up top. It's South Carolina. Now I know they're overwhelming favorite. But we got to think about some of the other teams. Now, I just love Hannah Hidalgo's game with Notre Dame. She's such a baller, man, as a freshman. She's not just a scorer. She also can pick your pocket. Steals. Also, Maddie Westbeld, another great player. Neil Ivy's done a real good job with that group. They won the ACC, and they got the 2 seed. Now, you've also got Indiana in this bracket, who's also another battle-tested team. They've had an Elite Eight recently. Mackenzie Holmes is their leader. Then you've got Oregon State there. They make some deep runs. They've been to a Final Four, been to a championship game before. And then sleeper, Ole Miss. Better watch out for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Because they do some things. But ultimately, for your boy, this is all about South Carolina. I just can't see South Carolina not getting to the Final Four to at least give themselves a chance to redeem themselves for last year's disappointment. Cardoso is not going to play in the opener, and they don't need her anyway because she's got that suspension from the LSU game. But I just think for Wiley playing so well, I think they got that chip that it's going to be them against Notre Dame to get out of this bracket for me. But I got South Carolina. I think they're going to roll through this thing. I think they're going to make some points to say, hey, we coming to win this championship.
I personally got South Carolina making it. South Carolina can beat you in a multitude of ways depending on your play style. They seen that Tennessee, that they were using ball screens. LSU, they tried doing the same thing. Dawn Staley adjusts to that. So I feel as though no matter how a team plays, I feel as though Dawn Staley can adjust to every single team's play style. If it's going to be a low-scoring game, we can beat you in a low-scoring game. If it's going to be a high-scoring game, we can beat you in a high-scoring. If it's going to be possession by possession, we can beat you in those ways. And with the depth that they have, even though they don't have Cardoso for the first half of the first game.
For the whole game.
I'm sorry. I personally feel as though South Carolina, the way that they can beat you in so many different ways, I personally have South Carolina making it versus Notre Dame being experienced. I like Oregon State, but I just feel as though South Carolina and Notre Dame is going to meet, and I have South Carolina making it.
The only way that South Carolina does not win this region is if it's Notre Dame, basically. And the way I say it is because I feel like a team like Indiana could give South Carolina some problems.
They could.
So with that, that's going to be a Sweet 16 game. Mm-hmm. And Notre Dame can sit there and look at what Indiana is doing to South Carolina in order to kind of, get to what they need to do in order to. But at the end of the day, I do think that it's going to be South Carolina that's going to be there at the Elite Eight against Notre Dame, and I have them go to the Final Four. So it's no surprise.
I
So
think
yeah, no
Indiana
surprise
wins the
that
game.
all three of us have South Carolina. All right, now let's go on back to the top one. All right, so is our consensus that that between the three of us that we think it's going to be Iowa against LSU in the Albany regional final?
Yes.
It
is with me.
That's because it's like Colorado can get them. I don't like Iowa making it though, but I do have LSU making it out. I do have LSU end up making it out though. I feel as though whoever will win between LSU and UCLA will make it out.
Yeah, I think LSU UCLA will be a tight game. I do believe that that's going to be the matchup there. I think Louisville is going to give LSU a game in the second round a little bit.
I agree with that as well. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think they're going to get them a game. I think Iowa, they'll have no problem in the opener. I think they play Princeton in the second round. Princeton's really, really good.
Yes.
Out of the Ivy, really good. I think that they push them, but they get through that game because both of the games will be in Iowa City. I don't think that they're going to lose a home game. Now that Sweet 16 game, Colorado or Kansas State to me can give Iowa some problems. Kansas State beat Iowa early in the year, early on a neutral court. I think it's going to be Iowa against LSU, though. I just have that feeling that it's going to be that way. And I think Caitlin Clark and that whole group, they're going to have a lot of tissues and towels because they're going to fall in that Elite Eight game against LSU. No Final Four for Iowa, but they'll get their ratings bonanza in that Elite Eight.
And I agree.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Iowa and LSU. Elite Eight.
All right. You got LSU?
Yep. Oh, for the to get out
bracket.
of there?
Mm-hmm.
The whole bracket?
Yep.
I got Iowa. And I know I'm probably it's 50-50, but I think I got Iowa coming out of there.
Okay. All right. So for Jay Coven, you have South Carolina and you have Stanford. Then you have LSU and you got USC.
Yes.
All right. How does it play out when they get to Cleveland?
I think the Pac-12 Player of the Year, Stanford, is going to pick off South Carolina.
Ooh.
I have Stanford picking off South Carolina. And then I have, do I want to say LSU? That's tough. That is tough. I think I'm going to say LSU. No, I take that back. That's hard. That's hard. That's hard because the thing with LSU, if LSU just lets the game play, this is what happened in South Carolina. They let their emotions get to them. If they let their emotions get to them and they don't stay disciplined, they can lose to a team like USC. Easily lose to them. But I think I'm going to go with LSU and Stanford.
Okay. OJ, you have South Carolina and
I have South Carolina, Stanford.
All right. Then you have Iowa.
And I have USC.
Okay. How does it play out in Cleveland?
It plays out in Cleveland as South Carolina. Well, I'll say this. Both USC teams are going to be in the final game.
Well, yeah. You know what? Take that back. I'm choosing USC. You know what? Forget it. I'm taking USC.
Yeah.
I'm taking USC over LSU.
I got USC versus USC. I have South Carolina versus USC.
And who's winning it?
Ooh,
I have USC. I have USC winning it all.
I have South Carolina. I have South Carolina beating the USC.
I have the Trojans winning it.
And you know what? I would love to see. USC come back to prominence because hey, I want to see them come, and then you'll see you see your fans like Cheryl Miller. Hopefully, she'll be at the game, and Cynthia Cooper. All of those people that made you fall in love with USC basketball back in the 80s. Come back to those to that game. Yeah, I actually have USC versus USC, and I have South Carolina winning.
So for me, I have South Carolina beating Stanford, and I have LSU beating USC in a thriller of a semifinal. I've got South Carolina playing LSU for the title. And I've got South Carolina winning it all for why I said earlier. They have the chip on their shoulder to go all the way undefeated.
Yeah.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, yeah.
Let us know what y'all think. Who do y'all have making it to the Final Four in both men's and women's? It's going to be a good one. Both men's and women's tournament will be entertaining. So get your popcorn and just watch out for the upsets, the Cinderellas, the Blue Bloods making it, and just be prepared for a great NCAA March Madness tournament.
Yeah, man. This was a lot of fun. Doing this with father and son, man. So yeah, everybody, don't lose no money out there. If you gambling, gamble responsibly. Don't lose the rent money. Don't lose the bill money. You know what I'm saying? Don't go crazy. Don't be throwing nothing when your team didn't win. Let's just watch this stuff, man, and let's enjoy it for the beauty that it is. You know what I'm saying? I hope all the athletes that are playing, I hope they have a lot of fun. The crowds, man, it's going to be amazing. Both tournaments going to be going up. So, gentlemen, I enjoyed this thing.
I enjoyed it.
We got to do it again.
Got to do it again for all sports. Who knows?
Yeah.
But this was most definitely fun.
Yeah. Well, so for Jay Coven and OJ, I'm your boy Wild Wayne Cartwright. Saying peace. God bless. And we'll see you next time.
Subscribe to the podcast channel at the Truth Comes to Light podcast.
That's it. Peace, y'all.